breaking news out of the NFL. Kirk Cousins is signing with the Raiders. They hold the #1 overall pick in the NFL draft, which is presumed to be Indiana quarterback Fernando Mendoza. And with that news, we say good morning to one Adam Schefter, who has been busy this morning. Good morning, Shefty.
Good morning, great one. How are we doing? Hello, Stephen A.
How does the signing of Cousins impact how the Raiders are going to handle Mendoza?
Well, you got a situation here where Clint Kubiak, the new Raiders head coach, has said that in his perfect world, he brings in a veteran to hold down the fort and play the position early on while they get Fernando Mendoza up to speed. And so now that he's brought in Kirk Cousins, whom he worked with for 3 years in Minnesota together, Kirk Cousins knows what to expect from Clint Kubiak. Clint Kubiak knows what to expect from Kirk Cousins. These two have worked together before. They'll do it together again now in Las Vegas. And so this is really an ideal bridge quarterback situation where they can bring in Cousins. It forces them to take the pressure off Mendoza. They don't have to rush him out there if they don't feel like he's ready. Kirk Cousins is a great quarterback for Mendoza to be around, to learn from. He becomes an ideal tutor. And if we think of Kirk Cousins in Atlanta, he did not choose to work with Michael Penix. The team chose Michael Penix. In this particular case, Kirk Cousins willingly, voluntarily signed on to work with Fernando Mendoza.
Mm-hmm. That's the key there. Stephen A., go ahead.
That's definitely a key point. That's definitely a key point that Adam brings up because he didn't pick the situation and the scenario in Atlanta. That was thrusted upon him after he had signed. You never know how a player feels. Like Kirk Cousins is class personified. There are times that we've been critical of him in terms of his performance periodically. He has had good performances. He's had bad performances. We all know that. But the one thing you've never questioned about him is his character. He's always been considered a really, really good guy. And so when the situation presented itself in Atlanta, whereas you may have heard some people complaining about it or whatever, you never heard that from Kirk Cousins. That's not who he is. And so when you're in Vegas and you're trying to rebuild, retool, get yourself together, and you're bringing in a #1 overall pick who's clearly the future of your franchise, and Fernando Mendoza, surrounding him with somebody like a Kirk Cousins to play the role of mentor, to start for a few games before Fernando Mendoza is ready to go and stuff like that, that's going to go a long way. But you hear a lot about Fernando Mendoza's character as well, and it's the kind of things that you've heard about him in terms of his religion, his religious beliefs, his approach to life, as well as the game itself, the people he surrounds himself with. You hear similarities between that and Kirk Cousins. So I wasn't surprised when I saw the news that Kirk Cousins had elected to go to Las Vegas because I have no doubt he's heard about Fernando Mendoza himself, and he wants to lend a helping hand to a guy like that. And I think that's a beautiful thing.
And I think that you could draw some parallels between the type of people, both very likable, both very quirky, in a nice, fun way. Mm-hmm. But I think that there are scouts out there in the NFL community who say that Fernando Mendoza is a bigger version of Kirk Cousins, that they play in a similar fashion. So you now have these two quarterbacks with similar skill traits, similar skill sets. And again, Mendoza's bigger, not as experienced. He'll get to learn an awful lot from being around Kirk Cousins. And Clint Kubiak gets exactly what he wants, a quarterback to hold down the fort until Fernando Mendoza is ready.
So let's clarify that a little bit really quick here, Shefty. Yeah. Do you anticipate there will be some sort of quarterback competition, or do you think that Kirk Cousins will go in as the starter right away?
I think Cousins will start right away. They're not going to say it's a competition. I think they're going to want to bring along Mendoza at whatever pace it is. And by the way, if he's ready to start in week 1, then they could always go to him. But now there's zero pressure. They don't have to rush him. They don't have to stick him out there before he's ready. They've got a seasoned veteran to go up against the AFC West division that includes quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, and Bo Nix. This is one of the toughest divisions in football. Are you ready to throw a rookie quarterback right into that? Maybe not. And so they don't have to do that anymore by signing Kirk Cousins to this particular contract. They can take their time with Mendoza and not have to rush him along.
Well, here's the difference. I mean, Adam Schefter didn't say a word. He didn't say a syllable that was wrong. But here's the difference between Adam Schefter and me. He's far, far nicer than me, okay? The Las Vegas Raiders have no expectations. You talk about a team in the National Football League that's playing with house money. It is the Las Vegas Raiders. They were not a very good team. Actually, they were pretty damn horrible in a lot of people's eyes, okay? And you're talking about them being in the AFC West with the Denver Broncos, who was the #1 seed, and by the way, I thought would have been in the Super Bowl had Bo Nix not gone down. okay? Then you've got the Chargers, who've improved their roster, and we know what Jim Harbaugh is as a coach. We know what Justin Herbert is as a quarterback. We know some of the pieces that they have, and they're a formidable team. And then, of course, you've got Patrick Mahomes, highly motivated, along with Travis Kelce, highly motivated, Andy Reid, Eric Bieniemy returning as an offensive coordinator, a Kansas City Chiefs team that not only missed the playoffs, but didn't even have a winning record. That is not going to stand for this organization led by the great Patrick Mahomes. They are going to come back highly, highly motivated. Who's the distant fourth in all of that? It's the Las Vegas Raiders. So you're playing with house money right now, which is another reason why it was very, very wise of them to bring in somebody like a Kirk Cousins who knows the situation, who's an adult in the room, understands what he's walking into. And Fernando Mendoza has nothing to worry about but his own growth and development. And so all of that, combined with the minimal expectations that should exist for the Las Vegas Raiders, they're in a good situation right now. Don't worry about losing games, Las Vegas. Just continue to improve and get better. Nobody's expecting you to win any damn way. Just go out there, be competitive, and show improvement every single week. That's what people are looking for. Anybody looking for them to win any games.
And you know who else they have, Stephen A? The former Baltimore Raven, Max Crosby.
Former
That's
Baltimore
right.
Raven for 5 minutes.
Former Baltimore Raven.
If you are seeing the
point,
bottom
Adam.
of your screen right now, maybe you're confused, but it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that Fernando Mendoza is going to go #1 overall to the Raiders. So we're keeping that in mind here. But really quick, Schefty, last question I have for you here. Is there a scenario, and I know this is all kind of new information, where Mendoza perhaps sits the entire year?
Listen, if Kirk Cousins steps in and he's playing well and they're winning games, then yeah, there's that scenario. It's hard to say exactly how the season's going to go. And going into the season, you'd have to look at the Raiders as the team in that division with the lowest odds of winning the AFC West title. But look, there are surprise teams every year. And I think the Raiders have a chance to be better than people thought. And if they're rolling along and they're winning and they could buy time for Fernando Mendoza to sit on the bench, learn, and groom him until he's ready to play, whenever that is, then yeah, they'll leave Cousins out there as long as they possibly can.
Okay. What you're watching right now, this is Fernando Mendoza's pro day that happened yesterday at Indiana, which I heard he put on quite the show. So we'll see where it goes from here. Again, Fernando Mendoza projected to be the #1 overall pick in the upcoming NFL draft, which takes place on April 23rd. Shefty, something tells me you'll have a lot more info for us as time ticks along.
3 weeks from tonight, Shay. 3 weeks from tonight.
All right, coming up here on First Take.
The Las Vegas Raiders are signing Kirk Cousins to play quarterback out in Vegas, where Fernando Mendoza is expected to be the #1 pick. There's a connection between the Raiders head coach Clint Kubiak and Kirk Cousins. They spent 3 seasons together in Minnesota. They now will be reunited in Las Vegas, and there's a real possibility that the Raiders' opening day starting quarterback will be Kirk Cousins over the #1 potential pick, Fernando Mendoza. But Kirk Cousins, who moved on from Atlanta, who wanted to continue playing, now has reached agreement this morning with the Las Vegas Raiders.
I don't like it. I love it. I've said it a million times. Don't throw these kids out there and put them in a position where they have to be the guy, not only week 1, but starting from the very beginning of training camp. I think this is a great move. And Tim Hasselbeck, I literally had just pointed out, because I saw it while I was in Phoenix with the owners' meeting stuff, that Clint Kubiak had said, in a perfect world, Fernando won't be the starter at the very beginning. We'd like to find a veteran who could come in and play. Not 100% sure we'll be able to make that happen. And here they are now, able to make it happen. What do you make of this? Cousins to the Raiders, Tim.
I love it. I love it. I love the history between Kubiak and Kirk Cousins. I love the type of veteran that you're signing for Mendoza to learn from. Cousins will be an absolute pro in terms of how he prepares. Not that Mendoza needs some unbelievable example in terms of that. Seems like he's already off to a good start, but it's a good confirming example for him. It's also a guy that has the battle scars of playing in an offense and some of the things that Mendoza is going to be able to learn from. So, look, I think it's a perfect environment, especially on a team. I said it earlier. It's a brutal gauntlet of quarterbacks to play in that division. It's a brutal, gauntlet of defenses to play in that division. And so Mendoza not being thrown to the fire immediately is also not a bad thing for him.
Jordan.
Best thing that could have ever happened to Fernando Mendoza, and he hasn't even stepped foot in an NFL locker room yet. And I mean that. This is an opportunity to learn. to pace yourself without the pressure that goes into being a number 1 overall pick on a roster that, frankly, is probably not ready for you to have success with that wide receiver room. I cover the UFL right now. It looks like a UFL roster in that wide receiver room. A lot of names that you're like, oh, I kind of remember that guy. He was okay in college. Like, they need to bolster that. Having a veteran like Kirk Cousins, and even more importantly, a veteran that plays the position the same way that Fernando Mendoza does. Wins between the ears. Good arm, not great arm talent. A guy that can win from the pocket and teach you and help you learn that process before the pressure really amps up.
I think you're 1,000% right. Think about the situation he's walking into. The two guys who can mentor him are Kirk Cousins, who is a pro's pro, and Tom freaking Brady, who is the greatest quarterback of all time and obviously was maniacal in preparation and study and all that kind of stuff. So Mendoza, you don't draft a quarterback number 1 because you want to win the Super Bowl this year. You draft a quarterback number 1 because you want to be in it for the next 15 years. I don't think it could be starting better. There's no way it could be starting better for Mendoza than this.
And it's also interesting to me, in Atlanta, Kirk Cousins did not choose to work with Michael Penix.
Right.
He was hoisted on him, surprisingly, when the Falcons used the 8th overall pick on Penix. In this particular case, Kirk Cousins is choosing to work with Fernando Mendoza.
Right.
This is somebody that he obviously had an option about whether or not he wanted to work with this young quarterback, and he chose to sign with Las Vegas. He chose to sign on to work with Fernando Mendoza. He did not do that in Atlanta. These are a different set of circumstances, and Kirk Cousins will be a great quarterback for Fernando Mendoza to be around.